Silver once moved the ancient world long before gold captured imagination. In the Greek world, silver was not merely metal shaped into currency, it was authority, trust, labor, and belief struck into a form small enough to carry, yet powerful enough to move armies and empires. To understand the ancient drachma is to step inside the beating economic heart of classical Greece, into the smoky, echoing spaces where fire, stone, and human skill transformed raw earth into the lifeblood of civilization. The story begins far from the bustling marketplaces where coins would eventually change hands. It starts deep underground in the mineral-rich hills of regions such as Laurion and Attica. Here, narrow tunnels were carved into rock with iron picks and stone hammers, following veins of silver-bearing ore that glittered faintly in torchlight. The air was heavy and stale, illuminated only by flickering flames. Miners, many of them enslaved laborers, worked in suffocating darkness, extracting chunks of lead-silver ore from the earth. Their effort fed the entire Athenian economy, making the silver of Laurion one of the most strategically important resources in the ancient Mediterranean. Once brought to the surface, the ore underwent a brutal and methodical process of separation. It was crushed into smaller fragments using stone mortars, then washed repeatedly in carefully engineered basins. Water flowed across sloped channels, carrying away lighter waste while the heavier metallic particles settled behind. This was not guesswork, but refined engineering perfected over generations. The Greeks understood the behavior of materials long before modern science named the principles. What remained after washing was still not silver, but a dense mixture that required fire to reveal its true value. Smelting transformed this mixture into something closer to currency. In clay furnaces fueled by charcoal, the ore was heated to extreme temperatures. The lead melted, absorbing the silver within it, while impurities separated and were discarded as slag. This molten mass was then poured into molds, forming rough ingots. To free the silver from the lead, a technique known as cupellation was employed. The ingots were reheated in shallow ceramic vessels under strong airflow. The lead oxidized and was absorbed into the vessel or evaporated, leaving behind nearly pure silver. What emerged was dull, heavy, and unremarkable to the eye, yet priceless in its potential. These silver pieces were transported under guard to state-controlled mints, often within or near major cities. The mint was not a factory in the modern sense, but a tightly regulated space combining craft, ritual, and authority. Entering such a place meant stepping into a world of rhythmic hammer blows, glowing metal, and disciplined repetition. Every stage of production was overseen by officials responsible for purity, weight, and design. Coinage was a public trust, and any failure could undermine confidence in the state itself. The first task inside the mint was measuring. Silver was weighed with extraordinary precision using balance scales and standardized weights. Greek coinage was built on strict systems, with the drachma itself representing a defined mass of silver. Accuracy mattered because value was intrinsic. A coin's worth lay in the metal itself, not in a promise printed upon it. Skilled workers cut or broke silver into small portions, each intended to become a single coin blank, known today as a flan. These pieces were heated until soft and shaped into rough discs, their edges uneven, their surfaces dull. Before striking, the flans were reheated to a glowing red. This softened the metal, making it receptive to the force of the dies. Timing was critical. A flan too cool would not take a clean impression, too hot and it could deform or crack. The process required coordination between multiple workers, each knowing their role without hesitation. One prepared the flans, another positioned them, another wielded the hammer. Speed ensured consistency, and consistency ensured trust. The dies themselves were works of art and instruments of power. Carved by skilled engravers, each die bore the symbols of the issuing city-state: an owl for Athens, a turtle for Aegina, Pegasus for Corinth. These were not decorative choices, but declarations of identity. The obverse die, typically set into an anvil, carried the primary image. The reverse die, held above the flan, often bore a simpler design or in-use pattern. Together, they transformed blank silver into a recognized unit of value with a single decisive strike. When the hammer fell, the impact was violent and final. The sound echoed through the mint, a sharp metallic crack that announced the birth of a coin. In that instant, the silver absorbed not only an image, but authority itself. The gods, heroes, and symbols stamped into the metal linked the coin to divine favor and civic pride. Every drachma carried the message that the city stood behind its weight and purity. It was a guarantee forged in sound and force. No two coins were perfectly identical. Slight variations in strike, alignment, and flange shape made each one unique, yet within these imperfections lay authenticity. People trusted these coins because they could feel their weight, hear their ring when dropped, and see the familiar symbols that generations had used before them. Counterfeiting was difficult and dangerous, punished harshly because it threatened the stability of the entire economic system. After striking, coins were inspected and sorted. Those that failed to meet standards were melted down and reprocessed. The rest were counted and stored, ready to enter circulation. From the mint, they flowed outward into the world, paying soldiers, funding ships, building temples, and filling market stalls. A single drachma could represent a day's wage, a measure of grain, or a small sacrifice to the gods. In larger sums, it could determine the fate of wars. The spread of Greek coinage reshaped trade across the Mediterranean. Merchants from distant lands accepted Greek silver because they trusted its consistency. Over time, certain coins became international standards, circulating far beyond their city of origin. The Athenian owl, in particular, traveled widely, found in hordes from Egypt to the Black Sea. Each coin carried with it a fragment of Greek influence, silently spreading ideas of economy, law, and identity. Yet behind every polished coin lay the human cost of its creation. The miners who labored underground rarely saw the wealth their work produced. Their lives were short, their bodies worn by dust and darkness. The mint workers, though more skilled and respected, lived under strict oversight, their precision demanded by the state. Coinage was a triumph of organization as much as artistry, built on discipline and control. Over centuries, techniques evolved, but the core process remained remarkably consistent. Fire, metal, dye, and hammer continued to define Greek minting even as styles changed. Later innovations would introduce more complex designs and broader circulation, but the fundamental idea endured. Value could be made tangible, standardized, and trusted through craft and authority combined. The ancient drachma was more than a means of exchange. It was a statement about order in a chaotic world. In a time without banks or paper money, these small silver discs carried stability in their weight and meaning in their images. They linked the deep earth to the human hand, the miner to the merchant, the state to the citizen. When modern eyes study these coins today, worn and dulled by centuries, they are seeing more than artifacts. They are seeing the final form of a long and dangerous journey from rock to silver, from labor to power. Each scratch and off-center strike tells a story of heat, force, and belief. Inside every ancient drachma lies the sound of the hammer, the glow of the furnace, and the unspoken agreement that this piece of silver would be trusted by all who held it. In that trust, Greek civilization found one of its greatest strengths. The drachma helped bind cities, fund culture, and shape history. It was small enough to lose in the dust of time, yet strong enough to endure for millennia, whispering the story of how Greece turned silver into the language of power.